Update. Grandpa is punishing my dad. I have the power to stop it, but don't know if I actually want to. Original post. Posted June 9, 2024. A 21 female lost my mom when I was 14. Dad remarried when I was 17. My stepmom has a 15-year-old daughter. She and dad had a 3-year-old boy, and now she just gave birth to a little girl. Anyway, I have worked since I was 16 to have some money to buy stuff for myself. When I turned 18, Dad said I was now an adult and should start paying rent. It was only $500, a symbolic amount since he would still cover food and other essentials. I was mad and we fought, but in the end, I accepted, and that was the arrangement until 7 months ago. Dad came to me saying I had 2 months to move out. Stepmom was pregnant, and they would need my room for the baby, which is insane because they both have private offices. My stepmom doesn't even need one since she's been a stay-at-home mom since the birth of my baby brother. Nonetheless, they told me I had to move. By the way, just an addendum, my stepmom and I get along fine. We don't fight or bicker. I don't think this was an evil stepmom moment, but who knows. My stepsister and I are actually pretty close. I help her with homework and talk about her personal problems. I do love her very much. Back to the story, I didn't know what to do. I'm going to college. I want to be a civil engineer and work part-time. I don't have the means to live by myself. So I called my aunt, asking if I could move in with her for the time being until I figured something out. I offered to pay rent and all. She was aghast at what Dad was doing. She said I absolutely could live with her, no rent needed, but also said she was going to deal with my dad. The next day, Grandpa came to our house, and they talked privately. I could hear my dad's angry voice, but couldn't understand anything being said. After a while, Grandpa came to my room and said I had 3 choices. The first was to continue living with Dad and stepmom like I was doing. Nothing would change except I wouldn't pay rent. The second was moving in with him and Grandma, or my aunt. The third was finding a place of my own, and he would pay the rent and costs for me. He said I didn't need to choose now. I could keep living with Dad, and if I changed my mind, just tell him. I was actually relieved I could still live with Dad and that this madness was over. But in the following days and weeks, Dad and stepmom were very hostile toward me, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable being in my own home. Even Cassie picked this up and asked me why they were angry at me. So I decided to move out and told Grandpa. He said he would take care of everything. A few weeks later, he moved me into one of his rental units. The apartment is lovely. He bought me a fridge, stove, and other essential items. He gave me a check for $15,000, saying this money was to help me start living on my own, and that as long as I was working or studying, I could live there rent-free for as long as I wanted. My dad and I have been pretty low contact since I moved out. He's never come to visit me, nor have I visited them. I miss them a lot, especially my stepsister, but I'm still hurt. 2 weeks ago, my stepmom gave birth. I visited them in the hospital. It was a little awkward, but nice seeing them and my baby sister. Anyway, a few days ago, Dad called me saying he misses me, the children miss me, and I should move back home. He apologized for asking me to move out, etc., etc. I told him I would think about it. Yesterday, I visited my aunt and was telling her what my dad said, and my cousin laughed a little and said, "I'm sure he does." I asked what he meant, and that's when they told me a lot of, until now, unknown information. Basically, my dad's home is actually my grandpa's, as is my aunt's. Basically, the deal he made with me, he did with all his kids and some grandkids as well. He never wanted any of his family to have to worry about basic stuff like housing and food, etc. When I called my aunt that time, she called Grandpa, who was furious with Dad, not only for kicking me out, but also for charging me rent. That day, he went to my dad's house and tore him a new one, threatening to have him evicted. But now for the petty part. You know that $15,000 Grandpa gave me? It's actually what I paid Dad in rent all that time. And now he's making Dad pay him back. Also, he's charging Dad $1,200 for the rent loss on the apartment I'm living in. Call me dumb or naive, but until now, I never realized my dad didn't make that much money. We lived in a great house, always went on vacations, and lived very comfortably. But I guess Grandpa has always been helping behind the scenes. Now my cousin thinks Dad is struggling, with 3 kids at home, a single income, and having to pay it back to Grandpa. So he says Dad wants me back because he imagines Grandpa will stop punishing him if I'm back living with them. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I actually love living on my own these past 6 months, but I really miss them. I miss my siblings. I miss the life we had before all of this, but I don't know if moving back home is the right answer. And also, I'm hurt that the reason he wants me back is money. Honestly, I just wanted to vent. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Stay right where you are. You can miss them and love them from afar. Go be with your grandfather and your aunt's family. They seem like the real family. Also, try to go see a therapist. Another thing to consider is that Dad and stepmom want a free babysitter. With a new baby, every pair of helpful hands is useful, even those of a daughter that is neither wanted nor loved. Your father is an a-hole. Your grandpa sounds lovely. I'm so very sorry that your father has hurt you so much. He doesn't want you though. He wants money. And knowing this is always going to hurt you and chip away at your self-worth. I know it hurts, but going back is not healthy for you. You deserve people in your life who love you unconditionally and want to spend time with you because it's you, without ulterior motives. How about starting new traditions with your aunt and grandparents? They love you and want you around. I wish you all the best. Also, visit your grandparents more. Go see them. They love you and care about you. Your dad won't even apologize. He is being selfish and a total prick. Now for the first update a week later. I wanted to give you guys an update since you've all been so helpful and kind to me. I was so overwhelmed by the support you gave me. Thanks 1,000 times. Before that, just answering some questions people had. My aunt and grandpa are from my father's side of the family. My mom's side, unfortunately, I don't have much contact with. My maternal grandparents had passed away before Mom. I have uncles and aunts I see once in a while, but they don't live close. I also have 2 other uncles from my father's side. I'm close to them, but not as close as to my aunt. She was my rock when Mom died. I consider her a second mom. My stepmom knew about the rent I was paying. It was implied my stepsister would need to do the same when she turned 18. But I don't know if she knew Dad didn't own the house or the extent of how much Grandpa has financially helped Dad. To the update, Monday, the day after my post, I called Dad and said I decided not to move back. I didn't mention anything I was told, just that I was well settled here and moving back seemed like a step back. But I also said I wanted to keep in contact with them. They could invite me for dinner whenever they wanted, and I also said I would love for my stepsister and brother to be able to spend time with me here at home. He was disappointed, and I didn't feel any anger in his tone at least, but he basically said, "We'll see," and left it at that. I was also disappointed. But then Friday he called me and asked if I wanted to have lunch Sunday, today. I said I already had plans with Grandpa and Grandma. He asked when I would be free, so we scheduled a dinner for Thursday. I haven't told any of this to my stepsister. We talk and text regularly. She also hasn't heard them talking about me. But she did say her grandma, her mom's mom, is there to help with the baby and is being incredibly annoying. I laughed at that. I wanted to offer her to sleep over here, but I didn't want to get her excited just for Dad to say no, so I'll try to talk with them Thursday. The big update is I've just come back from visiting Grandpa and Grandma. We spent a lovely day together, but I also said I wanted to know everything that was going on. I wasn't a kid anymore, and I felt like I was living in lies. The most important things were what my cousin and aunt told me last week, but there were a few more. Grandpa had been subsidizing quite often our basic needs, like school, healthcare, etc., because Dad hasn't had 1 cent saved up, according to Grandpa. Also, my college fund was mainly contributed by him and Mom before her passing. I guess that makes sense. I was also dumb not to realize this sooner. He has also set up funds for my baby siblings and also one for my stepsister because he didn't want her to feel excluded or not have the same opportunities as her siblings. This man is incredible. I love him so much. And yes, I'm very lucky. I've seen so many people commenting this, not in a derogatory way, but being very supportive and nice. I know I'm very privileged to have grandparents and family members who can afford and are willing to help me. I hope one day I can help others the way they are helping me. Anyway, I also expressed worries about Dad's financial situation, and he assured me Dad is fine, more than fine. He will have to be less frivolous with money for a while, but he would never let any of his kids or grandkids suffer or be in need of anything. As many of you said, he's trying to teach Dad a lesson. I should have taught him a long time ago. So I'll stay out of it. I don't think I'll tell Dad that I know all of this. I know many of you said to confront him, but I think it's for the best if he continues thinking I'm oblivious. Lastly, we talked about why Dad kicked me out. He didn't have an answer either. I could see he and Grandma were very hurt by what Dad did. He said he asked for an explanation but got none. That's it for now. I'll continue trying to have a relationship with my siblings outside of my dad and stepmom. I'll also try to schedule some weekly dinners with them. I know what you guys said about my father is mostly true, but I need to at least try to have a relationship with him. If not for him, for my siblings and for me. But don't worry, I won't let him hurt me anymore. Second update another week later. There isn't much of an update, but some people messaged me asking about how the dinner went. So, last Thursday I went there after work. Gosh, I missed my siblings so much, and I spent the majority of the time with them. My baby brother is not a baby anymore. He has grown so much. My baby sister is so cute. I could eat her alive. I never want to be apart from them again, no matter what happens. Cassie, I said her name once in my original post by mistake, she's my stepsister, is the only one I maintained regular contact with through calls and texts. She's just an amazing person as well. She knows I didn't move out under the best circumstances, but doesn't know the details or anything about the money. I asked if she wanted to have a sleepover at my house sometime, and she was thrilled. If I hadn't stopped her, she would have started packing that second. My stepmom's mom was still there to help with the baby. And guess where she's staying? In my old bedroom. They transformed it into a guest room. And the baby's room was stepmom's old office because it's closer to the master. Honestly, that hurt a little. I've only met my stepmom's parents a few times. They were always nice to me. But this time, she kept looking at me weird all the time. No matter where I was or where I moved, she was keeping track of me, like she was expecting me to try and steal something. When I was holding the baby, she didn't leave my side. Anyway, apart from that, dinner went as well as you can imagine. A little awkward, but I was glad I could see my siblings and spend a few hours playing with them. At the end, I mentioned Cassie having a sleepover on the weekend. Her grandmother started saying absolutely not. Cassie would not go. But to my surprise, stepmom stopped her. She said if Cassie wanted, I could pick her up Saturday after soccer practice. For dinner, that was that. When I was leaving, stepmom gave me a really tight hug. So many people were saying how she's just an evil stepmom that I kind of started to believe it. But as I said in my first post, we always had a good relationship. I left very confused and emotional. Saturday afternoon, I picked up Cassie. We watched Inside Out 2. Then we ate shawarma for the first time, which is basically a meat burrito. I don't see the difference. It was so good to spend the day with her. I'm so glad to have her in my life. Sunday, I dropped her off and went inside to see my other siblings. Dad wasn't there. He was out meeting a work friend. Some people asked what my dad does. He's a lawyer. Stepmom used to work for an advertising company, but is now a stay-at-home mom. We have another dinner scheduled for Friday. I don't know if I'll ever find out exactly why they wanted me to move or why they charged me rent. I don't want to touch the subject now because I don't want to jeopardize my relationship with my siblings. So I don't know if I'll have any more updates since things are settling down, and it's now just life. But if I find out in the future, I'll update. You guys have been incredible. Thanks so much for all the words of kindness and support you gave me. Talking it out and then reading your replies has helped immensely. I also took people's suggestions and started therapy, and this Friday will be my first session. Third update 2 weeks later. So things blew up a little, and I don't even know where to start. I still haven't processed everything I've been told. Since my last update, things have been normal from my side. I had another dinner with my parents the Friday before last. Stepmom's mom, who I'll call Ebby, meaning evil bitch, spoilers, was still giving me the dirty eye, but I ignored her. I had scheduled dinner with them for last Friday, and I was talking to them about taking my little brother to the park yesterday. But Wednesday my dad called me asking if I could postpone dinner and instead go to Grandpa's on Saturday because he needed to talk with the whole family. Meanwhile, I had been talking to Cassie, and she's been telling my stepmom, I'll call her Steph, and Abby have been fighting a lot. Well, last Sunday, Steph's father shows up. I'll call him Labby, meaning lying bastard. There's a big fight, and Labby and Abby go back home on Monday. So yesterday afternoon, I go to Grandpa's. My aunt was there as well. Then Dad and Steph arrive with Cassie. Dad was clearly embarrassed. He apologized to me and to my grandparents. Steph apologized to me as well, and Dad gave an explanation/apology/reason for everything that happened in the last few years. Some things I already knew, but Cassie didn't. She was present for the whole thing. So I'll try to tell everything here. I don't know how coherent I'll be, but I hope you can follow me. Years and years ago, Grandpa and a friend started a company. The company was very successful. When Dad was 25, Grandpa sold the company and made a lot of money. So he decided to gift each child a home. He gave his kids $350,000 each, with the promise they would use it to buy homes or pay off their mortgages. Grandpa had seen people lose their homes and didn't want that to happen to his kids. Dad didn't buy a home, however. He actually moved to New York to start his own practice and become a big and successful lawyer. And as you can imagine, things didn't turn out so well for him. Half a decade later, he had no money left, couldn't pay rent, so he reached out to Grandpa and moved back home. Grandpa helped him find a job with a buddy of his. After a while, Dad started to put his life back together, rented a home, moved out from Grandpa's, met my mom, and started dating her. They fell in love, and after a while, he asked to marry her. Before they married, Grandpa came to them and said he would gift them a home. He had already talked with his other kids, and they were fine with it. But because he didn't trust Dad, and because the home was so Dad's future kids would always have a roof over their heads, the home would stay in Grandpa's name, and in his will, it would go directly to Dad's kids. So I was actually mistaken before. My uncles and aunt don't live in homes owned by Grandpa. Only my dad does, and I think 2 cousins of mine as well. Next thing, I was born. Life was good for a while. Then Mom passed away. Dad struggled with taking care of me alone. That's when Grandpa started to help financially. A few more years later, Dad met Steph, but Dad was embarrassed about not owning the house and about Grandpa helping him, so he never told Steph any of this. To her, Dad was just a moderately successful lawyer. They married. She became pregnant. She asked if she could become a full-time stay-at-home mom, and Dad was embarrassed to say no. So he told her it was fine. Meanwhile, now with 3 kids, plus a stay-at-home mom wife, Dad was struggling even more. Grandpa was helping more, and Dad's savings were being diminished day by day. Dad admits that he kind of threw Steph under the bus to Grandpa, blaming her for his financial problems so Grandpa would continue helping for the sake of the kids. Now I need to go back a little and talk about Labby and Abby. Just like Steph, they thought Dad was a rich, successful lawyer. And they started saying to Dad how he was spoiling me, how I was going to be irresponsible with money, how I had an easy life, that when Labby was my age, he had to pay rent to his dad, and he did the same with his son, Steph's brother, and how successful they became, never needing anything from anybody, bootstraps, etc., etc., etc. And apparently, that got into Dad's head. He became afraid I would be dependent on him, or more likely Grandpa, and his money, instead of being successful on my own. He became afraid I would be a failure like him, someone who still needs his dad to bail him out. So he started getting parenting advice from his in-laws. Why not ask his own dad, who's much, much more successful and raised 3 out of 4 of his kids to be successful as well? I asked, and apparently it's because he felt embarrassed. That comes up again and again and again to explain Dad's actions. Embarrassment. He didn't want Grandpa to think even less of him. Therefore, the rent idea, which was a suggestion from Labby. Dad says his initial plan was to save the money and give it to me later. But with a new kid, Steph not working, and trying to project to Steph and his in-laws that things were fine, saving the money became impossible according to him. By the way, he also lied to me at the time, saying it was a normal thing to do, that Grandpa had done it to him and his kids. Which is a lie I discovered 8 months ago, but with everything else that happened, that seemed small at the time. There's a detail that I didn't disclose in my previous posts because I didn't think it mattered, and that is I'm part of the LGBTQ community. I don't hide this fact. In fact, I was already out to my mom before her passing. But it's not something I advertise either. That'll become relevant later. Anyway, continuing, Leiby became Dad's confidant, and he started to open up to him about his money troubles. And Leiby started to say things like I should move out, and things like that to Dad, which he rejected initially. Then Steph became pregnant again, and Dad panicked. That's when Leiby and Ebby came to Dad and said they would help him, not only financially, but Ebby would move in with him and Steph after the baby to help out, and even convince Steph to go back to work, since Ebby would be there taking care of the kids. But for that, I needed to move out. Their reason was that the home wouldn't be able to accommodate Ebby, and that it was time I left the nest, etc., etc. So they convinced Dad I needed to move out. Dad didn't tell Steph any of this, keep in mind, only that he thought it was the best for me, and the baby coming was just a great opportunity. According to them, Steph was against this, but Dad pulled the "my daughter I know best" card, so she deferred to him. They told me I needed to move out. I talked about this from my point of view. That day, Grandpa went to my dad's home and they had a huge fight. Not only Dad and Grandpa, but Dad and Steph too. Because it was then that she discovered Dad didn't own the house, Dad had almost no savings, and Dad was dependent on Grandpa. Dad's deal with her parents was still a secret. At this point, I asked Steph why she acted so hostile toward me after that day, so much that it made me feel unwelcome and want to move out. And she looked shocked. She apologized to me and started to cry, saying that she was never mad at me, but at Dad, that she had no idea she was to blame for me moving out. I was crying as well. I said it's not her fault. And guys, I know many of you have said bad things about her, and I don't blame you. But I do believe her. The look on her face when I said I felt unwelcome, and that's why I moved out. It's not something you can fake. Now I'm thinking she's as much a victim of my dad's actions as I am. And all this time, she was just trying to give me space. So going back to the events, I move out. Grandpa not only cuts Dad off from all financial support, but starts to charge him money for the house. The only thing he continued paying for was Cassie's education. Now everything is in the open, and Dad and Steph have to cut everything. Dinners, expensive foods, sell her car, etc. Leiby and Ebby give them some money as well to help out. Poor Steph is stressed out, pregnant, with a lying husband. I'm actually sad for her and what she went through. I was looking at Grandpa and I could see he was as well. I don't think he realized the amount of stress he was placing on her. I don't know how he will proceed from now on regarding Dad and the house. Before the baby's born, Ebby moves in with Dad and Steph. Steph gives birth, things are normal. But with the new baby, Dad feels even more guilty over what happened, and that's when he calls me. Again, this part I already told you. Jumping to when I went to dinner the first time. Dad and Steph also recognized Ebby acting strange toward me. After I left, they talked. Nothing came from it. But Steph kept talking to Dad about her mom, and Dad started to tell her about his conversations with Ebby and Leiby about money and raising kids, etc. After my second dinner, Steph confronted her mom, and they had a huge fight. Apparently, that's when she said something along the lines of, "I can't believe you're letting that slur back into your home after getting rid of her." And that's when the coin dropped for Dad, and he realized how much of a fool he had been. They kicked Ebby out. Leiby came to pick her up, and they had another fight. Dad actually wanted to act as if nothing had happened, continue with me visiting and rebuilding the relationship. But Steph put her foot down and said he needed to come clean about everything, not only to me but to Cassie and everyone as well. And so we came to the present. I was crying, Steph was crying, Cassie was crying, Dad was crying, Aunt was crying, Grandpa was crying, and Grandma, who hadn't said a single word, was holding me tight. According to Dad, that's all. No more lies, no more deception. Dad and Steph left after that. I slept at Grandpa's because I was in no state to drive. Came home this morning, took a long shower, cried a lot. And now I'm typing this out to see if it helps me make sense of all of this, to make sense of my thoughts and feelings. I guess that's the end of the story. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I feel sad, angry, sorry for Steph and Cassie. I feel everything and nothing. I'll be calling my therapist tomorrow to see if we can book more sessions. I've been going every Friday, but I can't wait a whole week. On the bright side, whoever had bet evil step-grandmother won. Family therapy. Work through this. Take your time, and if you can't trust your dad after that, it's absolutely fine. He smashed everything, and I hope they both cut contact with her parents and never let them around ever again. Yesterday, the more I thought, the more afraid I became of what has become of my dad's marriage to stepmom. She has been through a lot as well in the last months and has 2 small children. I'll suggest therapy for her as well, family and individual. I also realized now that she doesn't have her mom's help with the baby anymore. Things may be even harder for her. I'll talk to her and offer whatever help I can. It appears that Abby doesn't like you because you're part of the LGBTQ community, hence the slur part. That's what Dad and stepmom have said. He said he realized she was a bigot and was trying to push me away. I never had much interaction with them. When my parents were visiting them, I usually stayed with my grandparents. So I don't know if that was the last straw for him or if they had said other things to him in the past. He never showed any signs that he didn't support me, and neither has stepmom. That's why it never crossed my mind that it had something to do with it. Now for final update over a year after the last update. First, I'm in a much better place emotionally, as last year I was a complete wreck. I'm doing very well for the most part. For those who don't remember or do not want to read my previous posts, the summary is, my father forced me to move out. Grandpa was mad at him and cut off his financial assistance that no one knew about, including my stepmom. Stepmom's parents manipulated my father into kicking me out in exchange for their financial support. Now, after everything hit the fan that day, life went back to normal more or less. We started family therapy for a while. It started promising, with Dad being willing and open. But after a while, he regressed and became less willing to put in the work until he stopped going. Me, Cassie, and stepmom continued going for a while but stopped as well. I continued with individual therapy, and my psychiatrist wants to make an evaluation for ADHD, but wants to wait until I'm fully emotionally and physiologically stable. Stepmom and Cassie continue individual therapy as well. As I imagine most could guess, stepmom and dad ended up separating after a few months. At first it was temporary, but now there's no going back. The divorce is not finalized yet, however. Stepmom stayed in the house, as Grandpa would not accept anything else. I started going there to help stepmom with the baby and my little brother more and more until I was spending almost all my time there. So stepmom and I decided I would move back. I thought Grandpa would be disappointed, as he was very proud of how well I was doing on my own, but he looked happy when I told him. He said he'll keep that unit off the market a little longer if I ever need it. I continue going to uni, but took only a half load of classes this last year. Now I'm back to a full schedule. Fluid mechanics is a pain. Home life has actually been pretty good. Stepmom and I became really close this last year. She went back to work while I left mine to help with the kids, and I truly prefer this, as taking care of my siblings is much more enjoyable. But also Grandpa insisted on paying me to babysit. Next year, I'll start interning at a construction company owned by one of Grandpa's friends. I know many people insisted my stepmom knew everything or was somehow complicit with Dad's actions, but I truly believe and trust her. She's been almost no contact with her parents, and they are forbidden to visit. Cassie also stepped in and is helping a lot around the house, and Grandpa also insists on paying her for her time. We know this is his way of helping us without making it sound too much like charity. My baby sister is a little devil, running all over the house. The little Lucy, as I call her, that's not her name, but I do actually call her Lucy sometimes. Didn't even learn to crawl properly. She went directly to walking. We need to keep constant vigilance because it seems her head has a magnetic pull toward sharp corners. My little brother was the one hit the hardest by Dad moving out. I know these posts have painted a terrible picture of my father, and I'm not excusing anything he did, but he was a good dad otherwise, and my little brother was very attached to him. My father and I barely speak nowadays. He acts like we should all forget everything and move on, which I still cannot do. There's no formal custody agreement between him and stepmom, but he picks up my brother 2 or 3 times a month to spend the day or weekend. And now that my sister is older, hers sometimes too. Overall, I'm in a much better place than I was last year. I have an incredible family, amazing grandparents, loving siblings, and my stepmom has become a really close friend. I also know I'm extremely privileged to have a supportive family and system. At no point in all of this have I ever had to worry about having a roof over my head or food on the table, which unfortunately is not everyone's experience in similar situations, as I've been told, sometimes harshly, over private messages. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone who read or commented something. The support on my first post was the push I needed to stop being naive and ignore things. Posting here was a great way to help me figure out my thoughts and feelings, but I probably won't do any more updates, as I consider this chapter of my life closed now. Last story. My parents think I'll take care of my disabled brother when they die, but I won't. My parents keep telling me that when they're gone, I'll be the one who takes over looking after my brother. He's 23, severely disabled, and needs round-the-clock care. I don't live at home. I've got my own life, job, and plans for the future. I have no intention of giving all that up to be a full-time carer. I've told them straight up, but they refuse to accept it. They just keep saying, I'll change my mind when the time comes, but I won't. It makes me feel awful to even admit it, because I do love him, but this isn't the life I want for myself. I can visit, I can support, but I'm not going to be the one who sacrifices everything. It feels like they don't want to face reality, so they just dump it on me instead. I'm not giving up my life just because my brother happens to be disabled. This isn't my issue just because I was born into this family. You're not your parents' retirement plan, and you're not your brother's safety net. Parents don't get to assign one child as a lifelong carer for another. They need to make a proper care plan with professionals instead of outsourcing their responsibility to you. They are choosing not to prepare a future for your brother after they are gone, or even when they are old. This is not your fault, and you don't need to feel bad for their bad choices. Thanks. I know this rationally, but it's great to get the validation.